In this lecture, we are going to build our first QML application and run it in Qt Creator. And along the way, we're going to see some tips to go by when building your Qt applications using Qt Quick. Let's head to Qt Creator and do that. Okay, here we are in Qt Creator. We're going to create a new project. We're going to go to File, New File or Project. We're going to choose Application. And we are going to choose Qt Quick Application. We want to start with this empty template, so we're going to click on it. Choose Next. We are going to call it Qt Quick App Demo. We want to use this as the default project location. We hit Next. You want to use the latest version of Qt you have installed. Mine is 5.11 right now. Hit Next. You are going to choose the kit you are going to use for your project. In our case, we want to develop for desktop. I am going to show you how to run your Qt Quick applications on mobile devices on the Android platform later. But for now, we choose desktop because we just want to get started. Hit Next and hit Finish. The first thing I want to do is to go through the files that are generated for us and go through them to show some of the things they can help us with. The first one is the project file. If you have worked with Qt before, you know that this is the file that ties all your files in the project together. It shows what files are in your project. For now, you see that we have a source file of main CPP, which is a C++ file. And we have another file that contains our resources, which is called QML.qrc. We're going to ignore these things down below here for the moment. And if you look at the files that we have on the left here, you see that we have a sources folder. Inside we have a main CPP file. And if you open it, you see that it is a C++ file. Even if we are going to be working with Qt Quick works with C++ behind the scenes, and it needs a way to run. And we use this thing called QML Application Engine here to load our QML file that we show when we run the application. We're going to run it in a moment, but I just want you to have a feel of what is available in your project. If you look down here, we have another folder called Resources. This is the folder that is going to contain the files that your application is going to need. They are wrapped in resources here because resources are bundled into the executable of your application when you distribute it to the user, making sure that the files that are critical for your application to run are always available. Inside the resource files, we have this main QML, and this is the meat of the code, and this is where we're going to spend most of our time in the course. Okay, so this is what QML code looks like. Okay, now that we know what is available in this project, let's run the application. And this is what we have. A boring window that says Hello World in the title. This is your minimal QML application. Let's do something a little bit interesting inside so that we don't have an empty window. So we're going to write text, and this creates a text component inside our window here. So we're going to give it the text to show. Let's say Hello World. We want it to be in the middle of the window. So the way we do that, we say anchors, center, parent. I don't expect you to understand everything right now. I just want you to have something to show in the window. And I'm going to get a chance to explain all these things in the course. Okay, so we want to set the color for the text. I want to make it red, for example. And I want to make the font a little bit bigger. So I'm going to say font point size. Let's make it 20. Let's run the application. And you see that in the middle, we have a text that says Hello World. This is what QML code looks like. You have some imports on the top here to import some components that you're going to use. This is where all these components are coming from. The text is coming from the Qt Quick. Window is coming from Qt Quick window here. And if you don't believe me, let's comment this out. And you're going to see that we're going to have errors. It doesn't know what these things are. Window, text, we don't know what these things are. So we need to import these things so that our compiler knows what they are. Okay, by now you have seen one way to run your Qt Quick application, which is through the QML Application Engine class. Let's go back to Qt Creator and analyze this a little bit more. If you look in our main CPP file, you see that we have a main function, which is the entry point for our application. When our application runs, it starts here in the main function. We instantiate a QGUI application like this, which is going to wrap around our application. And inside, we create a QML application engine object, which we use here to load our QML file. This line here is really loading our QML file and showing it in the window as we saw when we run the application. The second way is to use some provided command line tools that you can use to run your QML files one by one. You obviously don't want to start a Qt project whenever you have some QML file you want to run just to see how it looks. So we're going to use some of these tools. The first thing you might ask, where do I find these tools? Well, you go where you installed your Qt packages. In our case, we are going to go in C because that's where I have it installed. You see I have a Qt folder, Qt 5.11.1. I click on the Minji version of my Qt installation. I go in the bin directory, and if I scroll down, you're going to see that I am going to see one tool called QML and another tool called QML Scene. These are our tools that we can use to run the application. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the path to these tools, and I am going to go where my QML file is located. So I'm going to show this in Explorer. So if you are on a Mac or on a Linux machine, you should find equivalent ways to do the same thing. This just takes me where my project is hosted. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and right click, and it's going to give me an option to open the command line window here. Okay, and you see that it is opened here. If I do a dir, I'm going to see the files that make up my project. And if you look inside, you see that I have a main QML file. So what I want to do is to paste in the path where I have my QML tools in the Qt installation directory. And I'm going to complete the path with the QML tool. And I'm going to specify that I want to run the main.qml file. Okay. When I hit enter, notice what happens. You see that our Hello World application is shown. Okay, this is one way you can run your QML files. Let's use the QML Scene tool and do the same thing. So I'm going to say QML Scene, and I'm going to specify main.qml as we did before. And you're going to see that it is the same thing. We have our QML application running the same way it ran in Qt Creator. If you're like me, you probably think that typing all these things to run one QML file is really tedious and it's hard to do. There is an easy way. You can add the path to these QML tools to your environment variables, and all you have to do is do something like QML main.qml, and it is going to run. Why is it running? If you do this, it's probably not going to run. For me, it is working because I have added this path to my environment variables, and I'm going to show you how to do it on Windows. There are equivalent ways to do the same on a Linux machine and a Mac. All you have to do is find ways to add environment variables to your operating system, and Google should give you more options than anybody can. So we are going to go in My Computer, click on Properties, click on Advanced System Settings, go into Environment Variables, and you're going to find the path variable like this. You click on it, and you are going to add the path to the tools as I did here. You can see the full path to there. And when you add it like this, and remember to put a colon at the end, confirm, confirm, and close this. And if you close your command line and open it again, just like this, you're going to be able to run your tool. So let's clear. So I want to kill this application because it is hanging here. So I want to clear and show you that I can do the same thing using QML scene main.qml, and you see that the application is running. There is another way you can run your QML files if you really don't like these command line tools. It really is a wrapper around the QML scene tool. You create a prototype file in Qt Creator and run it. Let's go to Qt Creator and try this too. The first thing I want to do is to copy my files because I'm going to paste it somewhere. Let's collapse this, save everything, and close again. So I'm going to File, New, Other Project. And on the right here, you're going to see a Qt Quick UI prototype. I want you to select this, hit Next. We call this prototype test. You can choose where you want to save it on your drive. I'm going to hit Next. Choose the latest version of Qt you have installed. And in the end, you see that you have a QML file that is called prototype test. It takes the name of the project you specified. So I'm going to take out everything and paste in the code we had, and I can run it directly. Okay, and you see that it is the same thing we had before. And what this is really doing, it is doing the calling to QML scene for you. And by now we have seen 4 ways you can run your QML files. You can use QML application engine like we did here. You can use the command line tools that are provided. You can call QML scene to run your application, or you can even call QML to run your QML file. And the last one is to create a prototype file that you can run directly by clicking the green button here if that's what you find easy. Before we wrap up this video, I want to show you how you can show some log messages, because that's something very important to know in whatever technology of programming that you are working on. We are going to log something when our component here is loaded. The way you do that, you say component on completed. Again, don't worry if you don't understand all this. I'm going to have a chance to explain this. I just want you to know that you can do a console log just like in JavaScript to show some debug messages. So in here we can say, for example, component loader. And when you run the application, you're going to see that in the application output pane. This covers all we set out to do in this lecture. I hope you liked the introduction to Qt Quick, and you had a glimpse on different ways you can run your QML file. In the next section, we're going to start looking at some QML syntax and shed some light on some of the things we've been talking about in this lecture. I'll see you in the next section.